Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to explore the totally fascinating neuroscience behind why your brain just won't stop overthinking, especially at, 2 a.m. We've literally all been there, right? Just staring at the ceiling? But what if I told you the problem isn't your life, but the biological hardware that's actually running it?
I want you to start by seriously challenging your own sense of self. Ask yourself, is the voice in your head, that constant running inner monologue of anxiety, self-doubt, or panic, is it actually yours? Or is it just a biological program running quietly in the background? We usually assume our thoughts are our truest identity, but the source material we're exploring today flips that entirely upside down.
Section 1. The voice isn't you.
So to understand how the words in our heads actually get implanted by outside forces, we really need to talk about NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming. Now, I know NLP is sometimes dismissed as a controversial sales tactic or a passing self-help fad, but at its core scientific level, it reveals something profound. It's the study of how language, emotions, and memory literally connect to form automatic behavioral programs. Just think about a parent repeatedly telling a child, "You're not good enough." Over time, those words physically wire the child's neural pathways. By the time they're an adult, nobody needs to say it to them anymore. Their brain just automatically generates those thoughts on its own. The outside voice completely became an inside program.
And this whole idea brilliantly illustrates a famous concept from the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein. He basically said, "The limits of my language mean the limits of my world." It's wild to think about, but we don't actually live in objective reality. We live in the highly subjective reality constructed entirely by our vocabulary and the language games we play.
Let's break down how this actually works in real life. Childhood phrases literally become adult neural reflexes. A super simple phrase like "don't bother people" can warp over decades into a strict biological anxiety trigger, making an adult physically terrified to ask for help or set basic boundaries. And on a societal level, just look at the diamond industry. The simple phrase, "a diamond is forever," literally created a romantic necessity out of a shiny rock. It changed human behavior globally. And today, social media algorithms do the exact same thing, using repeated keywords to sculpt our perception of success and failure. Repetitive language physically sculpts how we see the world. So if language shapes our reality, how does the brain actually process the world around us?
Section 2. The brain's disaster movie.
And that brings us to a really crucial concept in modern neuroscience called predictive processing. See, your brain is absolutely not an objective camera just passively recording what happens, not at all. It is a hyperactive prediction machine that guesses reality before actually experiencing it. Why? Well, evolution. It was just way safer for our ancient ancestors to mistakenly predict that a rustling bush was a man-eating tiger and run away, rather than stand around trying to objectively analyze it. Because of this survival mechanism, our brains are hardwired to jump to the worst possible conclusions just to keep us safe.
Let's walk through a micro scenario I think we can all relate to. Step 1. Your boss texts you? Come to my office. Step 2. Boom, your brain's prediction machine activates. Am I getting fired? Did I mess up that project? Step 3. Your heart rate suddenly spikes, adrenaline surges, and you are in literal fight or flight mode walking down the hallway. Then step 4. You sit down and your boss casually asks, "Hey, what do you want for lunch?" Your brain just scripted an entire disaster movie out of thin air, causing massive physical panic over a completely neutral event.
So, the million-dollar question is, what is actually writing that terrible script? It's called the Default Mode Network, or DMN for short. Think of it kind of like your brain's background app. The second you stop focusing on a specific task, like when you're washing dishes, taking a shower, or staring at the ceiling at night, the DMN automatically boots up. It acts as an automatic screenwriter, constantly generating narratives, social worries, and hypothetical arguments. It just fills in the blanks with catastrophic predictions because the human brain simply cannot handle uncertainty.
And hey, this isn't just some modern anxiety phenomenon. Let's look at the classic empty city strategy from ancient Chinese history. The strategist Zhuge Liang, facing a massive enemy army, decides to leave his city gates wide open and just sits on the wall playing a lute. The opposing general was Sima Yi, and what actually defeated Sima Yi wasn't the reality he saw, which was just an empty, undefended city. It was the terrifying ambush his own DMN predicted. His brain couldn't accept the crazy uncertainty of the open gates, so it wrote a disaster movie of a hidden trap, literally forcing him to retreat.
Section 3. Trapped in language games.
Let's move into a real-world clinical setting for a second. There's this fascinating anecdote from the source material about a clinic patient experiencing severe, panic-inducing chest pain. He was totally convinced he was dying. But his doctor didn't just tell him he was fine. He explained that his illness was actually 70% fatigue and 30% brain stimulation. The brain was taking a physical sensation of stress and predicting a literal heart attack. The DMN's movie was screaming, "I'm having a heart attack," while the observed reality was simply, "My body is experiencing tension." This perfectly demonstrates the incredible power of reframing our language to distance ourselves from the brain's terrifying predictions.
So, how on earth do we break this loop? Well, first, do not immediately deny the feeling. Fighting it honestly only validates the brain's panic. Second, you gotta question the brain's automatic story. Ask yourself, is this a fact or just a prediction? Third, rename the experience. Simply changing your internal label from "I am in extreme danger" to "I am observing a physical tension signal" instantly alters your nervous system's response. It literally turns off the fight-or-flight alarm. And finally, just observe the physical sensation without attaching a dramatic Hollywood narrative to it.
Section 4. Hands, the brain's remote. Now we're going to bridge the gap between mind and body. We usually just think of our hands as tools to interact with the world, right? But neuroscientifically speaking, they are actually the external nerve endings of the brain. They occupy a massive, totally disproportionate amount of real estate in our sensory and motor cortex. Because of this incredibly deep biological connection, we can actually use our hands as a physical remote control to interrupt the DMN's automatic storytelling.
This beautifully translates ancient Eastern mindfulness practices into rigorous modern neuroscience. Take these specific hand gestures, known as mudras. The Zen mudra, with your thumbs gently touching, provides a subtle, continuous physical feedback loop that interrupts the DMN and forces the brain right into the present moment. The fearless mudra, which is an open palm facing outward, naturally opens the chest and biologically signals safety, activating the calming parasympathetic nervous system. And the wisdom mudra, with the index and thumb touching, heavily anchors your attention away from racing thoughts and strictly into a localized physical sensation. These aren't just symbolic things, they biologically force the brain to stop predicting and start observing.
And this ties perfectly back into NLP through a concept called anchoring. You actually see this everywhere in peak performance. Think of a boxer tapping their chest 3 times right before a fight. They are actively using physical touch to trigger a specific emotional state. By holding a specific hand gesture when you are completely calm, you are essentially creating a physical save state for your brain, kind of like saving a video game. Later on, when you're super stressed out, repeating that exact gesture can automatically wire the brain to recall that calm state, triggering your parasympathetic recovery on demand.
Section 5. Becoming the Watcher.
The absolute biggest takeaway here is that these ancient practices, whether it's Buddhist observation or Taoist hand gestures, they weren't just mystical magic. They were early neuroscientific manuals. They were rigorously designed over thousands of years, specifically to quiet the brain's hyperactive prediction machine. The ultimate goal has literally always been to gently pull our consciousness out of the brain's fictional, anxiety-inducing narratives.
So, let's quickly recap how you can actually step out of this illusion. First, recognize when your default mode network is running a disaster movie. Just catch it in the act. Second, use language reframing to lower your biological panic. Rename danger to tension. Third, anchor your focus using physical gestures like those mudras to literally physically interrupt the brain's loop. And lastly, realize that the voice of anxiety is just a biological program trying to keep you safe. It is absolutely not the truth, and it is not you. Ultimate relief really comes when you stop trying to control the world and instead use these tools to step back and simply observe the brain's automatic processing without engaging it.
Which brings us to our final and honestly most important question of the whole explainer. The next time you're lying awake at 2 a.m. and that familiar disaster movie starts playing in your head, will you stay trapped as the terrified protagonist in the film? Or will you use these tools to finally take your seat in the theater as the calm, empowered watcher? Really think about that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.